Minasan! Welcome back to the final episode of Step 3 of our life, beginning and always. We left off on a cliffhanger last time, as we were given the choice of, we're gonna go sneak to Cove's room, and that was where I left you all. If Cove could do it, then you didn't see why you shouldn't be allowed to. You made up your mind. As quietly as you can manage, you put on your shoes and slipped out of your room, closing the door behind you softly. Heading slowly down, you took care not to make the floor creak, especially the boards right by the bathroom. Those definitely squeaked. The stillness of the night made even the slightest sound seem so much louder to your ears, and you were very aware of your mom sleeping nearby. Upon reaching the bottom, you tiptoed towards the front door. Slipping out through the crisp night air, you shut the door and took a relieving breath. Excitement rising, you dashed across the street towards Cove's house. The road was too surreal at this hour, familiar and yet strange. It might have been eerie at another time, but with how eager you were, you hardly cared. You attempted to find your way from the normal footpath to the side of the condo, but the limited light was making it difficult. You knew for sure on which window was Cove's, and lucky for you, it was on the first floor. Unlike Cove, you wouldn't have to do any building scaling. Thank God. All you need to do now is make it safely over the fence and past the bushes without being caught or injured. Definitely don't get injured, Blue. Sneaking closer, you glanced over the hedges towards Cove's bedroom window, finding it cracked open. Perfect. You wouldn't have to knock without worrying about him not answering. Hoisting yourself up with ease, you cleared the fence and avoided the shrubs, then darted over to the window. You buzzed with a nervous excitement as you approached it in the dark, having successfully made it all the way here unseen. Lifting the window up so that it was fully open, you pushed yourself halfway through, your legs dangling on the underbrush below. It was a little awkward as a small shelf was right in the way. You had to take care not to knock over a couple of plants, but you made it through with minimal noise. Thank God. Once safely inside, you dusted yourself off and turned back to close the window gently, with only the soft glow of moonlight and Cove's fish tank there to see the way. You gave a small wave to the special fish you got to name Flare. Then, straining your eyes through the dark, you crept towards Cove's bed, barely making out the sleeping figure beneath the covers. Oh, are we gonna give our boy a heart attack? By the sounds of his soft breathing, you could tell he hadn't heard you come in, and a small smile tugged at your lips. We're gonna sit down on top of him. Chuckling quietly to yourself, you crawled over the bed towards him and sat yourself right on his chest. His eyes snapped open and he attempted to pull it upright, but couldn't move an inch with your weight on top of him. His head flopped back down with a huff. You continued smiling down at him and he looked back to you completely lost.
What?
Oh, Cove! You don't think I was gonna break into your house at some point in my life? He watched you with wide eyes, completely unsure what to do, before you whispered something croakily. You couldn't quite make out what it was, but when you leaned in closer, he attempted to speak again. Get up, please. Can you get off? What? Okay. Fine, boy. Fine, Cove. Now that you had his attention, you scrambled off the bed and stood beside it. Cove took in a deep breath, clearly not happy with your brand of a wake-up call, rolled over and turned his back on you. He softly murmured to himself, already starting to doze off again. Why do you always have to sit on me? Because that's the point, hon. You snickered quietly to yourself as you sat there. He could figure it out on his own. After a few more seconds, he did. Wait, Blue? Yes, do you need something? He shuffled under the covers and sat up to stare at you in alarm.
What?
Why are you in my room? What happened? I'm not allowed to break into your room, but you're allowed to break into mine? Double standards much, buddy. A smile slipped onto your face as he finally registered your presence for real. I didn't want to be alone. He frowned, his eyebrows pinching together in concern.
Are you okay?
Cove, I thought we had this discussion earlier. Not really, but sure. Is everything okay? Putting a hand on your shoulder, he locked eyes with you. Yeah, I'm feeling better. He sat back a little, giving you a fond smile. I should have known you'd do this one of these days. It's only fair. You let out a breath, feeling relieved that he didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, it felt kind of good. You thought maybe this enthusiasm was why Cove did it so often. He pushed himself up fully, swinging his legs over the side of the bed, leaving a spot for you beside him. Aw, thanks. Thanks, Cove. His hands shook where he held them in his lap. He was nervous. You sat beside him happily, waiting for him to speak first. You can stay as long as you want. Really? Yeah, really. Can I stay the whole night? Can I stay the whole night? Thank you, of course. You smiled, feeling relieved that he had agreed, and he grinned back. You could always count on him. I've secretly slept over in your room before. It's only fair you get to do it too. You snickered, feeling pleased with your decision to do this. It looks like you... Okay, but there's no way I'm letting you take the floor this time. Here we go again. You rolled your eyes and let out a soft laugh, which Cove returned as he rubbed at the back of his neck. I want to share. Can you try to stay? His eyebrows dipped. He was growing visibly nervous. It was to be expected. But after what happened last time, you'd been waiting for another chance. You hoped he felt the same, and it seemed he did.
Yeah.
This time, we can share. You'll really stay? You won't leave to be on the floor? He nodded. Holding back your delight, you tried not to grin at his sudden resolve. We're gonna share the bed. You could hear the tremble in Cove's voice as he held his hands together, keeping them from shaking. He let out a breath and shook his hands in front of him, mentally preparing himself. It's gonna be alright. His mouth set into a grim line and he balled his hands into fists at his side, determined. It's not that serious. Just relax. It's only me and you. Nothing bad is gonna happen. It only took a couple moments longer before he turned to you, attempting a weak smile. Ready? I'm definitely ready. Let's get cozy! He took another deep breath and you slipped under the covers, making room for him to get in after you. Laying as straight as a steel rod, Cove tensed up beside you, so he was still barely breathing at all. You rested on your side and faced him, your eyebrows pinched in the middle as you watched him. He looked back at you deeply. Do you need more time? I can leave till you're more set up here. No, please don't go. I just want you to stay with me. Ever so slowly, he began to relax, his fingers tentatively brushing up and down your arm. His eyes shut, lashes fanning out over the top of his cheeks, and you still half expected him to run away like last time. But he didn't. He stayed right where he was.
Don't worry about it.
You don't have to worry about me. Doing stuff like this isn't a problem. It's a process. You nodded in understanding, even though he couldn't see it, giving him time to let his nerves settle. After fluffing up your pillow and getting yourself comfy, you stayed quiet. Eventually, his shoulders became less rigid and his eyes opened. He smiled and turned his head towards you. Thank you for waiting. Again, as always. He laughed shyly, his soft eyes meeting yours through the dim light.
Are you okay?
I'll always wait for you, Cove. He squeezed your arm a little tighter, his lips curving into a smile as he looked at you in awe. He shuffled closer, inch at a time, and nuzzled his chin against the top of your head, wrapping his arms around your side. Your fingers gently brushed up and down his back as you held him close. The room grew quiet around you. The only sounds heard were the faraway crash of the ocean waves and your breath mingling in the small space between you. Cove's heart was pounding, the thump of it rumbling through you as he spoke again softly.
That's...
You know, I'm not scared of you, right? It's just, so many other things that scare me. I'm afraid of what-if hypotheticals that aren't actually real, but I think about anyway, and of nebulous concepts of things that mean that I can barely explain it to myself. I'm scared of my own feelings and how much I feel them. And I'm afraid, because tomorrow things will be different between us. But I'll be alone again. He held onto you tighter, his breath stuttering ever so slightly. It's normal right now to see you during the day and part ways at night. Except for special exceptions. A little laugh escaped him before his tone became serious once more. It's easier to stay where I am than it is to make myself move. It's not take a risk and not know what I might be missing, but... He hesitated, and you reached up to brush a few strands of hair from his face gently, his eyes slowly fixing on yours. When did doing the easy things get so hard? When it comes to you, I don't know how to stay still. I want to keep taking steps forward. Honestly, when I see your face or even imagine it, I want to start sprinting. But when I try, I hit a wall. It's just like I physically can't do it on one side of my mind. There's something blocking me. And then on the other side, I absolutely can't stop myself from doing it. It never ends well.
I'm always like this.
I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing. Why do I do it every time? I'm annoyed with the way I am, so I have no idea how you stand it. I'm sorry I acted so split when it comes to, romantic things. I don't want you to think you're rushing me when I know I'm giving mixed signals. And I don't want to miss out on being happy by being like this. But sometimes I still can't help it. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad you've never given up on me. It means a lot. It means everything to me. You don't give up on me either. Ah! His eyes glossed over a little as he squeezed you closer to him and smiled, his heart rate finally relaxing to a Look at his face! Aw, I'm sorry, Cove. You poor innocent boy. It's okay, Cove. It's okay.
Good night.
Good night. He leaned forward and kissed you tenderly, his hand gently moving to cradle the back of your head.
I love you.
Oh, he's so adorable! I love you too. You were still smiling as you snuggled into him, getting as close as you could. Cocooned in his warmth, you easily grew comfortable next to him, feeling him ease into you as well. Before long, your eyes were growing heavy and you drifted off into a restful sleep side by side. The next morning, you were lost in a comfortable dream, until a loud noise startled you awake and your eyes flew open, wildly searching for the source of sound. It was the door opening abruptly, and in the frame stood Mr. Holden, smiling brightly. He hadn't seemed to have noticed you straight away. What the hell, man? Get your butt out of bed, sport. Mom's here. Oh, hi. I broke into your son's room. Sorry about that. All of a sudden, the two of you made eye contact, and he froze where he stood, the smile slowly slipping from his face. That's not what I usually walk into. I clearly should have knocked this morning. You should knock every morning. Of course, Cope would get away with sneaking into my room, but I'm the one who gets caught. Should I pretend I didn't hear that? Yes, please do. I just needed to say it, my dear man. Cope blinked his eyes tiredly and mumbled something incoherent before turning towards the door. Both you and Mr. Holden stared at him for a few moments, neither knowing what to say or do. Cope, who continued looking at his dad dozily, was obviously having a hard time trying to process the situation. Oh, Cope! I'm sorry about laughing, guys. This is funny. Then his eyes widened. Dad? Cope scrambled out of bed in an attempt to get to his feet, pushing the covers back off the both of you. Forgetting that there was no overhanging ceiling above him, he shot upward. Oh my god! Oh, Cope! And his head on the wood. Ow! He flopped back down on his pillow, pressing a hand to his head and groaning loudly. You couldn't help the sound from breaking out, though when Ko shot you an unappreciative look, you clamped your... I'm not clamping my mouth shut. I'm laughing at you, buddy. I'm sorry. It was the second time that sharing a space with him had resulted in him hitting his head. Somehow, that made it even funnier. Ko, bud, you alright over there? Mr. Holden stepped further into the room, his eyebrows furrowed in concern. He bent down towards his son.
Yes!
Yes! Please just go! Okay, I'll leave. Cliff held his hands in front of him in a calming gesture, even though Cove couldn't see it. He turned to make his exit, but stopped abruptly in the doorway, obviously deciding he had something more to say. I know we've talked about this before, but I feel like now is one of those times to mention that I was barely older than... Oh! Honey, you won't have to worry about that. When I found out I was gonna be a daddy, so... Just, if there's anything you need to say or... Nope! We are not getting kids yet! He let out a heavy sigh, running a hand over his face before stopping himself and saying calmly, You know what? It's fine. We'll chat about this later. Kyra's waiting. With that, he stepped back out of the room, giving the two of you one last look before pulling the door shut behind him. Cove rubbed his face before dropping his head into his hands and mumbling between his fingers.
Oh my god.
Well, that was fun. He said nothing, and you got the impression he didn't appreciate your comment. I'm sorry, hon. You gotta accept the fact that I'm gonna make some comments about this. With a heavy sigh, Cove forced himself to sit up again. He frowned hard, staring over at the closed door. Sorry. I guess we can't just hide in here now. He gave you a sidelong glance, and despite his displeasure at the situation, a small smile quirked his lips.
It's nice.
It's too bad. It had been really nice. I wish I could stay in here all day. You found yourself smiling along with him. The two of you took a few minutes to get up properly and get yourselves as ready as possible. Cove put his glasses back on before heading out to see Kyra. Kyra was waiting patiently in the living room. She was in high spirits with her eyes set on the hallway. Her amused smile only widened when you and Cove froze. Shit! We're getting caught by everybody! Everybody's catching us coming out of Cove's room! God damn it, Cove! Why do I get caught and you never get caught? It didn't take long for the realization to sink in that the scene must have been loud enough for her to hear even from there. Cove tried to look unimpressed, eyes narrowing over Kyra's smug delight, though his face was already turning red and his mom hadn't even said anything yet. He squared his shoulders, lifted his head, and strode forward.
Hey.
Hi, Mom. Hi, baby. And hello to you too, Blue. Her tongue cracked in her greeting, and then she just gave in and laughed. Unable to keep any of it in, Cove frowned at that and his eyebrows furrowed. Sorry for the interruption. I didn't know you already had guests. His frown wobbled as he became even more embarrassed by this moment. He couldn't muster up any words to defend himself. Well, it's not like anyone's surprised by this. Kyra laughed even harder this time. As it slowed, she brought a hand up to cover her mouth, but you both could still see her shoulder shake. Cove still looked mortified, but he shot you a stern look. All you could do was smile. Honey, this is a package deal. My humor comes with this, so let's deal with it, buddy. Cove was still unable to say anything. Other than his teeth biting into the inside of his cheek, he stood there frozen. Kyra studied you both for a moment.
It's alright.
It's alright, my not-so-little mister is spreading his wings. I can't complain about that. She lightly tapped the tip of his nose. That got a tiny smile out of Cove. Despite being much taller than Kyra at this point, he still seemed like a little kid in front of her. They don't seem like that much taller. Like, if you were gonna say Cove's so much taller than her, maybe, like, the sprite should be taller than her? Like, that looks like he's maybe an inch taller. That don't look like that much taller. You released the air you were holding in your lungs, and then Kyra's gaze locked onto you. Ah, shoot. You know, we were just about to go over and see Pam and Noel. Are you two coming? Sure, I should definitely go back there. I didn't really bring a change of clothes over to your house. Cove chuckled at your phrasing. He stretched his arms for a moment and yawned, trying to physically shake off what happened.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great.
Great, let's do it. That was when you noticed Mr. Holden standing on the other side of the room. You figured he must have been trying to create some space for everyone during that last conversation. You could tell he felt a bit awkward, but he tried smiling reassuringly as he scratched the back of his neck. His attention went to Cove. Bud, do you want to get changed first? Cove looked down at his pajamas for a moment. He shook his head. No, we don't have to wait for that. Are you sure? It's only a trip across the street.
Don't worry about
I'm alright. Besides, Blue is going in pajamas too. True. Totally true. Fair point. Cove then leaned in closer to you. He grumbled quietly. And your moms are gonna figure out what happened anyway, so... Yeah! We might be in trouble.
Come on.
Anyway, we go! Away we go! With that decided, the four of you headed out across the street to your house. It felt strange waiting there while Mr. Holden knocked on the door.
Hello.
Hi there! Mom answered the door, and her expression brightened even more seeing Kyra there. She moved to pull Kyra into a hug when her gaze fell on you. Blue? Hi, Mom! Funny story! I may have snuck out of the house last night while you were all sleeping and went over to my boyfriend's room. Haha, funny story.
Huh?
When did you get out there? Why are you still in your pajamas? Mom's eyebrow raised as she gave you a deep examining stare. Meanwhile, you and Cove shared a slow side glance with each other. Before you could answer, more heads popping into view around the doorway. Ma, Liz, and Lee were all chuckling. To be honest, I always assumed Cove had been the one sneaking around. You are correct, Ma. Her eyes sparkled with amusement and you had to look away. You noticed Cove's face was burning red again. It was a solid theory, Lonnie. Most likely they've both been breaking and entering. I only did it once! Can't blame me, Mom! I let him put it past my baby. He takes after his parents.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I can hardly believe my Blue has been getting up to all that mischief, too. Mortified, Cove looked like he wanted to disappear while the adults chuckled and discussed what you and him may or may not have done. Fortunately, they left the conversation there. Enough standing around out there. Come on in. Mom moved aside to usher the group in and guided them to the living room. Before anyone could get settled in, Mom spoke up. You're all welcome to stay for breakfast. We still have some great spices and stuff from the farmer's market.
Of course.
Yes, we'd be thrilled to host you. There were eager nods from Mr. Holden and Kyra, but Cove looked around the room filled with familiar faces before speaking up. Maybe instead of staying here, why don't we head to the beach? A scenic picnic, eh? Mr. Holden crossed his arms and contemplated the idea happily. Excited, Kyra clapped her hands together.
Yeah.
Oh, we could really make a day out of it! Might as well enjoy the ocean while we can. That sounds lovely, Cove. Ah! I hate that! That sounds lovely, Cove. Everyone else put their own agreement with Cove's suggestion. Before long, both families dispersed, getting everything ready. Sandwiches had to be made, water, sunscreen, towels, and even more needed to be gathered and packed. Plus, you and Cove both took some time to get dressed for the day. An hour later, both your family and Cove's were walking down the old path to the beach. The morning was already turning into a bright, beautiful day. You honestly couldn't ask for better weather for a beach trip. The moment you laid your eyes on the full view of the ocean, you stopped and were mesmerized. It didn't matter that you grew up there. The sight always filled you with wonder. Hey, Blue.
So?
I was thinking about calling Terry and Miranda. See if they can come too. Everyone else is pretty much here already. So, would your family mind? Wow, you had a good idea! He chuckled, his mouth pulled into a bent smile. It had to happen sometime. Even with Clifford's surprise, Holden raising me. Cove! Clifford's surprise Holden raising you? That had you laughing this time. You were already eager for your friends to join you there. Hey, Mom! Ma! They both stopped what they were doing and turned towards you. Immediately, you darted over to them. I have a question. Would it be alright if Terry and Miranda came by? I don't see why not. Ma looked to Mom to see what she thought. She nodded in agreement, and Mom shot a glance over at Mr. Holden and Kyra, knowing they had likely heard everything.
You alright with that?
Cliff, Kyra, what do you two think? The more the merrier!
Okay.
Of course, they're welcome with me. Thanks. Delighted, you nodded and turned on your heels. Cove was still several feet away talking to Lee and Liz, likely about the same topic. With a beaming smile, you gave him a thumbs up. The two of them must have also approved as Cove quickly got his phone out and started making calls. At that, you turned your attention to helping with the picnic setup. Unexpectedly, your phone started ringing. You dug it out, curious to see the caller ID. Feeling your heart jump with excitement, you answered. It was Derek. Hey, this is a surprise. I thought you disappeared. Nope, I have not. And I hope it's at least a good surprise. A very good one. He chuckled at that, and your smile widened. So what's up? The voice came through was much deeper than it had been when you first met, and it still had the exact same amount of enthusiasm as of a kid. Have you been enjoying these crazy summer days? There have been ups and downs. I would have enjoyed them more if you'd been here. He sighed deeply into the phone. You frowned, trying to imagine how this summer would have gone if things were different with him. Sorry, but if it helps, I was thinking the exact same thing about you. Distance sucks, huh? Yeah. But what about you? How's your summer been? You were beyond curious to know what Derek had been up to since the last time you spoke. He chuckled, noticing your invested tone. Honestly, I've just been slammed with stuff lately. College applications and scholarship inquiries. What else is new? I bet your only real struggle. Totally. His chuckle turned into a sigh. You could hear a small smile when he spoke. I really hope so anyway. That would be amazing. What about your family? Are your brothers being good? My little brothers are little punks, but I guess they're doing all right. You both laughed at that. It was easy to imagine the grin on his face. Mom and Dad are fine. That's great. My moms are too. Turning your attention back to your surroundings, you smiled warmly as at your family buzzing around. Towels were laid out and chairs and umbrellas were being set up. Actually, I'm out with my moms right now. Ah! Liz and Lee are visiting too. Oh, that's fun. If that's the deal, I'll let you get back to it. Are you sure? I don't mind. I'm sure. I'm not about to lose your number. Okay, bye. Bye, Blue. Have a heck of a day. Hanging up, the conversation left you energized and in good spirits. It's exactly what you needed to make this day even better. You hurried over to your mom's and helped put the rest of the food out. In moments, you noticed Cove at your side. So, what's the verdict on those invitations? They're gonna come. Yes! Excited, you raised your free hand for a high five. Cove laughed, and slapped your hand.
Yeah.
They'll meet us here later today. Shouldn't be too long. I can't wait. While on the topic of inviting people to join you, you realized there was someone else you could call as well. You had gotten Baxter's number earlier that summer. Everyone else was going to be there. You didn't want him to be left out. You sent a text hoping he'd show. After that, you made sure not to mention what you'd done. No one seemed to mind. Once the setup was done, everyone got comfortable and dug into the food. You couldn't remember the last time breakfast tasted this good, but you attributed it to the gorgeous ocean view and soothing sea breeze. Morning swiftly gave way to the afternoon, and a very recognizable face came walking down the shore. It was Baxter. He came. He pleasantly approached with a wave.
Hello, folks.
Hello there. I appreciate the invite to the party. Of course, you're welcome with us. We brought plenty of towels and food and sunscreen. Yeah, you're one of the neighbors. Kick back and relax with us.
Thank you.
Aww. Baxter's gaze moved over to you and Cove. He smiled. Blue, Cove, long time no see. Hi. You waved from where you leisurely sat and Cove nodded. I'm glad you decided to come. So am I. It was then that Baxter noticed the faces he didn't immediately recognize from around the neighborhood. He turned up his charm even more for the introductions. Excuse me, I'm Baxter Ward. I'm sorry we haven't met before. Oh, we're not typically from around this area, just visiting. I'm Cove's mom. A few giggles escaped Lee as she watched Baxter carefully. When his attention turned to her now, she held out a hand.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Lee, Blue and Liz's cousin. Baxter shook it and then took a step back. Lee's smile grew. I'll remember that. It's very nice to meet you both. After that, Baxter spent some time getting better acquainted with everyone. Terry and Miranda arrived excitedly. The conversation shifted to what you would all do next.
In that case?
We could do a few rounds of volleyball. There's plenty of us now.
Is that all right?
Could I play? Of course. Miranda brightened, delighted with this plan. Ma looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I'd have to change. It'd be fun to watch. I could be the ref. My eyes won't miss a thing. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan. Who? I have some crafting supplies we can use to make jewelry. We can even make stuff we find around the beach to accentuate them.
Really?
What? Really? I want to make a necklace.
That'd be great.
That'd be interesting, trying my hand at that too. I could do that. Nice.
Absolutely.
Impromptu crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join too, please. Let's make some jewelry. Already you were imagining various designs you can make depending on what Lee let you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. Kyra got up from the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head.
Can do.
I'm up for a few rounds. Well, since there's a free spot, I'll throw my hat in the ring. The things I do for family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I'd love that. Liz got up from where she was sitting, and you could tell from her expression that she is already determined to win. You laughed to yourself, curious at how that game would turn out. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split into two. Okay, let me pop back to the house to get my supplies. Anything we can do while you're gone? Yes. You can start clearing out the towels for us to work at. And if you want, look around for some good stuff to use.
I'm on it.
Roger that. While Lee ran back to the house, the group did just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on the towel and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held up two necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you want to make. I have everyone a choice of either a chain or a thread rope. How do I pick? All I know is I want to put some sea glass chunks on it. That's a charming idea. His gaze went back and forth between Lee's two necklace-based options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it. I can't decide anything for mine. No rush. I'll leave the strands here so you can decorate it however you want later. I suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. Fate can decide. I think I'll keep it classy and only worry about finding a decent shell. Yeah, I'm planning on doing shells too. I'll just wait and see. I don't got a plan. Baxter nodded, obviously able to relate to that mindset. Cove crossed his arms and chewed on the inside of his cheek. You weren't the only one that noticed. What's wrong, Cove? I'm not sure what to use. I mean, ideally I want to find a shark tooth, but what are the chances I would even find one? Mom smiled. You both looked at him sympathetically. Sorry, the rare downside of not having a shark-filled coast. That would make for a really nice necklace, though.
I know.
Aw, at Cove's pouting, Mom gave him a little bump on the shoulder with her fist. Well, don't lose all hope. You never know. You might be really, really lucky! Cove laughed. It cheered him up even though he wasn't really convinced. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work at their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached in loops that were then slid onto their necklace base. Terry was immensely proud of herself when she was done. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his words and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had a good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, it seemed. Pope ended up using driftwood of varying lengths to design his necklace. Despite not finding any shark's teeth, he still looked pretty pleased. Mom decided on a medium-sized purple ring-topped shell as the centerpiece of hers. Lee went with a few small Simnia shells. They both put their necklaces on soon after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had shells. Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts could be heard coming out of the court. On top of that, you would hold up each newly made piece in the air. The players would take a breather and applaud the creation. You really enjoyed searching the beach, trading supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only one that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally, someone would head back to the houses to use the bathroom, rest away from the sun for a while, or to retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take part in or another game to join. At one point, Mr. Holden even broke out his pack of cards and roped the whole group into a few rounds of Go Fish. There was only one thing that could bring this beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before anyone realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you were taking a break, sitting on the towel with your legs stretched out past it, your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and you smiled. Hey there, kiddo.
How are you?
How are you doing? I'm doing great. Today's been amazing. They both sat down, squished you between them. Mom leaned her head against yours, and Mom started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Mom looked at you wistfully. We're both really proud of you, Blue.
True.
You grew up more than we could have ever hoped. Only thanks to you two. Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly into a side hug. Mom continued lightly scratching your back.
Thank you.
That means a lot, but I still think you're selling yourself short. You've always been a lovely person, and I'm so thrilled to know you. Your voice faltered, and you honestly couldn't imagine your life any other way. Ma lightly brushed some of your hair back and left a small kiss there. I'm so happy I got to have both of you as my moms. After that, all three of you were sitting there getting all sentimental. I don't know how we got so lucky with you and Liz. Ma reached out in front of you for Mom's hand. She gave it to her and Ma squeezed it.
Of course.
Blue has a point. We must have done something. Something right. You stayed there quietly and contently, watching the sunset with your parents for a while, until Mr. Holden called out to you. He was still walking in your direction. We were talking and think we're gonna take a walk down the shore. Any of you want to come? Automatically, you looked from your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled. That sounds good to me.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching. That's a yes across the board. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw out a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came in a light jog. Hey, don't leave us in the dust! Cliff kept going forward but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand so he could face you again.
No worries.
No, don't worry. We won't leave without you. Alright, we'll catch up. Ready to go? Uh-huh. Both of your moms held a hand out to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one, and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her in too. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smirk, and she didn't resist. Together as a family, you followed behind the others, hand in hand. Your feet squished into the wet sand as the waves rolled over them, and you didn't have a single care in the world, as more and more stars began to dot the sky. Once the sun had long since been out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. The closing of the day and the ever-approaching end of summer seemed to intertwine. It caused quite a reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove into a hug before moving to do the same to you. You chuckled, still overjoyed that you got to see them today. I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here. That's okay. But still, I wish we could clear this all up. Don't worry about it. Just thanks for coming out today. It was cool having everyone here. It absolutely was.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a low five. You obliged.
See you later.
Take care of yourselves, buddies. After that, they walked away, waving to you and Cove as they went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. I'm happy I got to see them. You looked at Cove and he nodded.
Me too.
Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood of your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with her hip. It left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend. Blue?
Come on.
Hey, Cove, could you come here? Both of your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still so much to pack up, and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into bags and bundling them up in towels. Once things were ready to go, everyone filled their arms with as much as they could carry. Absolutely no one wanted this to be a back and forth kind of task. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cool breeze carried you across the sand and onto the road. There was a sigh of relief from what felt like the group as a whole when they arrived back in the neighborhood. Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying on the ground.
Thanks.
No, thank you for allowing me to join today. You all shared with me. Helping carry it back is the least I could do. Ma nodded, and the others started collecting their things from his pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove. It was really a pleasure getting to know you both this summer. His head tilted towards you, and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. Forget a side hug. It took a moment, but after shuffling what you were carrying, you were able to free one of your hands enough to pull Baxter into a quick hug. He genuinely laughed and looked at you fondly when you let go. I think we ended up as good friends.
Glad to hear it.
I wholeheartedly agree, Blue. I enjoyed this vacation immensely, thanks to you. Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous for a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. Would happily do it all over again. Bye, Baxter. Yeah, bye. Baxter nodded and walked a few steps towards his condo, then he stopped and waved.
Goodbye.
Oh. Baxter sauntered away completely and disappeared into his condo to return to his own things. His time with you and your family and friends ending. I enjoyed Baxter. I wish he had had more like Derek. Like, there was more that Derek did in the story that Baxter didn't, but I also realized Derek had the DLC, so hopefully some of the DLC gives Baxter more moments that you can spend with him during the summer, with you, him, and Cove. Because I'd want Cove to, like, actually become his friend. Like, I don't feel like Cove ever was willing to really be Baxter's friend. You paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, you looked back over to the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kyra or Mr. Holden everywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face. Seems like you were holding up some Holden things. What the hell, Mom? What in the world is that kind of sentence coming out of your mouth? Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right. Some of it belonged to the neighbors. Would you mind dropping it off now? Looking down again at everything you were carrying, you sighed. A teasing grin played at your lips. The Holdens is a long walk from here. Cove snorted and laughed next to you, making your grin widen. Mom chuckled and shook her head. You can hack it, and then you'll get to experience the joy of a job well done. You laughed happily and nodded. Mom smiled fondly. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you.
Good night.
Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, Blue. Night. You caught up to Cove and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kyra and Mr. Holden busy unpacking already. Things were scattered on the countertops and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. Hey! It's nice to see you again already, Blue! Her teasing tone brought a light smile to your face. You heft the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with your things from the beach. Oh, thanks for getting that to us. You can put it here on the coffee table. Mr. Holden pointed to the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what you didn't belong to your family there. Cove put his own things down on the floor, just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You need a second of rest and a minute to re-situate it all. You went over to where the others were too. Kyra opened her arms wide, waiting to hug you. Wanting to hug you. Sure! Let's go for it. Without any hesitation, you went to Kyra and let you pull her into a hug. You squeezed her back just as tight. Her hug was filled with affection, and you hoped that she could feel how much you cared for her as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. You're welcome. Today was amazing. Kyra eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kyra moved aside to let him say goodbye too. He grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor. And not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Blue. So much. At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. I'm really glad that you're my neighbor. Let's hug him. You burst forward into Mr. Holden and wrapped your arms around him. Surprised, he went rigid immediately. Did we shock you? Did we shock you, my dear man? Did you not think that your future daughter-in-law was not gonna hug you? Because that's gonna be what happens. But several moments later, he relaxed and began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug. You squeezed him tighter. Thanks for moving in. As you let go, he sniffled. But when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back on who you used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend.
See you.
Bye, Blue. You smiled softly. Then Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about all that. I'll put the stuff away in a few minutes. Right. I need to do the same with my family. I figured. Cove walked you to the door and held it open. Taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home, you went into the road. He leaned his body against the door frame, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I mean. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye. You're gonna sneak into my house tonight, aren't you, boy? Yeah, bye. It won't be long before you see me again. You offered him a small wave goodbye with one of your hands. Cove reached forward and gently cupped your face with one hand. His thumb trailed across your cheek for several heartbeats. Mesmerized by his blue eyes, you stepped forward, delighted to oblige in the request he was silently asking. He met you halfway as you smiled into the kiss. It was soft with longing and your chest ached, knowing there couldn't be anything more than this, at least for now. One of his hands grabbed onto the door handle and firmly held it. He was stopping himself from coming along with you. As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. Cove reached out like he was catching it off the side, and then he curled his fist to his chest, holding the kiss close. Your lips curled into a beaming smile. I hope you'll treasure that forever. Things couldn't be dragged out any longer. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning, and you added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly. I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow? Yes. Honestly, it's too late for this.
Thanks.
Please and thank you. Ma put her hand on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not the one who liked to leave a mess around, but she sighed.
All right.
I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It really has been a long day. Liz grinned contentedly. Liz wasted no time in skipping over to you and hooked you in a side hug. Good night. I hope you have the loveliest of dreams of you know who. Liz ended the sentence with a wink and a hearty laugh. She let you go. We're blushing. That was a blush-worthy comment. Good job, Lee. Lee's grin widened as you took the bait. Your face burned even more realizing that. Stop that! You hissed in a louder, hushed tone. The reaction seemed to only turn her giggle up. Don't worry, I'm not judging what you do in the privacy of your own mind. Lee! Sorry, I'm done. Here's to us, Blue. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever. Yeah, family forever. Leah leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on her face. Aww. Exactly. There's no escape. That got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Leah stretched her arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that, and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Nighty-night, I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day, and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. It's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, baby sister. Bye, old sister. Liz turned back to smirk at you. Chuckling, you gave her a small wave. Sleep well. You too. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. Aren't you heading up to bed too? I want to relax first, desperately. You needed some time to decompress, clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now, you would end up staring at the ceiling all night. And that would be such a shame to stare at the ceiling all night. Okay. Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
All right. Do what you need to. I love you. When you were done hugging Ma, Mom pulled you into another hug. Their actions basically handing you off to the other had you laughing joyfully. I don't know. I say words probably wrong. I love you so much. You're the best parents. Aww. Ma's eyes sparkled from your compliment. Mom pulled you into another hug. Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Night, sweetie. Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hall. You were about to turn in the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. And don't let the bed bugs bite. You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed and you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It was a good rest and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning on going to bed when something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large windows spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out at the hills behind your house. As if on cue, your phone came on, alerting you of a new notification. It was Cove. Want to hang out on the hill tonight? Oh, you bad, bad boy! Something inside you told you this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You sent him back a very quick message. Yeah, no kidding! Why would I not go out there? Oh, he sent me a heart! You went over to the front door, and stepping over the threshold, you gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way over to the Poppy Hill. With the light... With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead, at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered if he had always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. Then again, maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow Cove was intrinsically linked with this place. After all these years, it would be weird to scan this horizon and not find him there, as surreal as the shore without the sea. The distance between you was growing shorter by the second. Hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet, Cove turned. A grin spread over his face as he saw you. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of the Poppy Hill, looking out over the ocean. Same as you had done on countless times since he first arrived when you found him in this very same spot.
Blue.
Yes? He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly. There's something I've always kind of wondered about. He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance. What did you think when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house. He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond, before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing your very bright green hair. Cove burst into genuine laughter at your reply. I guess that's fair. It did kind of stand out. Smiling, you continued to reminisce about that first meeting. I also remember trying to cheer you up. I remember that too. He ran a hand through his hair and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at an end, even before he spoke again.
I mean...
Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person? Was I annoying or mean or... Alright, let's do that! I mean, honestly speaking, guys, that was my point from the very beginning. That is how this romance worked. Cove turned fully to face you, drawn in by the weight of your words. His mouth hung open.
Oh my god.
Really? You seriously mean that? Yeah. He stared at you, his eyes round as the full moon, then ducked his head away. He seemed to be struggling for a way to respond.
What?
I don't even know what to say. You really just knew I was right for you? He took a deep breath, building up his courage for what he wanted to bring up next. I wonder if we were meant to find each other. I think we were. Cove smiled bashfully, his eyes flicking back to you under green lashes. Cove's hand drifted towards the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. His head drooped as he looked down at the ground. The grass ruffled gently against his feet, tousled by the breeze rolling off the sea. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. You seemed special to me, as soon as I saw you. Though admittedly, as a little kid, I definitely didn't think it was love that I was feeling. You raised an eyebrow at his vague words, wondering wondering what it was that he meant. Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more. I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back when I first saw you standing right here. I still know the expression on your face when you chose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled derisively, interrupting his own monologue. You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out here until I had to face my dad again. And then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how that made me feel. And you listened to me. You stayed with me. I know, buddy, I made a choice. He sighed, then bit his lip and gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. A little! Your teasing rolled easily over Cove, who laughed in reply. He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that.
I mean...
Things didn't simply happen that would be weird according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense that everything in my life had a specific connection to me somehow, right? He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike thought. Logic, leh. So at that time, you felt almost unreal. Like you weren't just anyone, some other kid who happened to live in that neighborhood with your own whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me, you were there so you could find me when I was lost. Though it turns out you were there for that. You were trying to find me because something had sent you specifically to do that. I just didn't expect it to be my dad. I guess he knew more about what I needed than I thought. He chuckled, shaking his head as he shook off the thought. I kinda expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again. I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like, or when I went back, or the table I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I really think that something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was just too big for me to hold all at once. So I never thought I'd see you again. Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright. And I never, ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was grown up, the two of us would still be together. I guess that makes me your dream come true. You'd been joking, but Cove nodded in agreement. Aww, my boy. You are. You exactly are. But the smile faded from his face as his eyebrows drew together. That was the worst day of my life at the time. The day my family broke apart. It was too heavy for me to even think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long. He held a hand over his heart, connecting it with the pain he felt as a child, and looked at you earnestly.
It's okay.
But that was never really true. Things have only gotten better with me and with Dad and Mom. It was the change we all needed. His eyes were growing misty. So, when I remember that time right now, it's not a point that my life was over. It was only the moment I met the woman I love. Oh, Cove! You adorable boy! When I was crying to a stranger over what I thought I lost, I didn't have any idea she'd be the one thing in the world that I actually wouldn't be able to live without. He took in a deep breath, forever amazed whenever you spoke these words.
I love you.
Cove! We're gonna kiss. He leaned into the kiss, his lips soft against yours. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was still as delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned this hill. Hey, Blue. I'm so grateful you were there, even when I wanted to run away. You didn't even know what to say back to that. His heartfelt appreciation left you speechless. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above. I I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. Ah! My moms might care, but I don't feel like telling them. I won't tell them either. Good! Are you gonna lay in the grass now? Wow, how'd you know? You're predictable. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down on the ground and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time there. I'm sitting on you! You took your rightful spot squarely on his chest. Cove wiggled a bit in protest, but accepted his fate. And how did I know you were gonna do that? 'Cause I've done it every time I've been given the option? You simply smiled down at him. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt like just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking out over the horizon. Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone.
Huh.
It really was late. Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn. However, not like this. He was normally an early riser, an early sleeper, early riser. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself on the backs of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face. Do you want to go back home? I could carry you if you're too tired. No, I want to stay here. You couldn't resist a yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately.
I get it.
Okay, but it's been a long day. We've done a lot of things. Like, really a lot. It has to come to an end sometime. Since when are you okay with things ending? That made him laugh again. It was a fair question. Since you made me feel better about it. And we can still stay if you want to. Cove smiled brightly at you, as warm as the new rays of the sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. You moved your face forward and gave Cove a small kiss. He tilted his head against yours. Ah, you're my favorite neighbor, thanks, Space Cadet. He gave you a bent smile and gave his own sentiment.
Good night.
Oh, Cove. The two of you remained together in that familiar poppy hill where you first met until the world began to fade and blur. You were falling asleep. And a few more gentle words drifted into your consciousness.
See you tomorrow.
Oh, Cove! Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed, and everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes. Instead of the walls of your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but the bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day welcomed you with shining sun, a refreshing breeze, and the chirping song of birds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling the imprint of the blades of grass leaving lines on your cheeks.
Blue.
Oh my god, Cove! When you say my name like that! Hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cove Holden. Oh my goodness! Oh, look at my boy! He had made himself very comfortable, laying on his stomach with jewelry and shoes taken off and a flower in his hand. Good morning. It's not really morning anymore. Cove laughed, tickled with the overall situation and simply being able to spend time like this. I told you I'd see you tomorrow. Oh, look at that face! Oh, that face! Look at that! That's a smug dude! That's smug! Good job, Cove. You've learned to be a little smug dude. Ah, appreciate bet. We see each other nearly every day. I'm glad you were right. Cove's face lit up in a broad grin. Me too, but there wasn't really any doubt. Cove turned his head to the sky, his expression content. Well, looks like it's gonna be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it. He trailed off, blinking slowly in the sunlight. Someday, when we're older than we are now, I wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What will we feel when we look back at it? Will it be the same as we feel right now?
It's nice.
I can't see what the future's gonna look like again, but I think that's alright. I think it'll mark another new start for me. Cove's eyebrows lifted as he turned towards you. That's a good one. I want to think about it like that too. He eyed the hill sprawling out before you and down, where the wind and nature gave way to civilization. Your home and coves lay down at the bottom, neatly filed among the other houses in the neighborhood. Hey, Blue, I bet I can beat you getting back to the road. You laughed, amused by the wager, and reminded you of so many moments in your youth. As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. We can always come back to see the poppies and the fireflies again, right? Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. Yeah. He didn't know where that came from, but Cove blinked slowly, his eyes still locked on you. Though you didn't need to see his face to know that he adored you, if there had been any room for doubt, the tender way he spoke would have filled it up. You're one of a kind, huh? Cove beamed at you, his expression so unlike the one he had worn when you first found him there, swallowed in sadness and uncertainty. You couldn't help but glimpse at that boy once more underneath his bright expression and matured features.
Come on.
Okay? He offered you a hand and you accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, pulling you along too. Our parents probably aren't gonna come running for us this time. We've gotta make our own call. I say we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hill's just one part of things. There's gonna be more for us than this time. And this place alone. Let's enjoy it. You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke out into a run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made the choice for you both. The end result was the same, with the two of you dashing down the hill like children, but with the nostalgic revelry that can only come as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There were more memories to make, after all. Life takes another step forward. And, well, there we go. We've made it to the credits. My goodness, guys. This has been fun. Obviously, I like dating sims, and obviously, I knew I was going to enjoy this one because I was one of the people who backed the game, which is why the name Blue is in the game. I backed it so that I could have that choice. I backed it even more so that I could have the hair options, which is why Blue looks as close as I can get to how she looks in all my art. So I'm super happy with all this. It's a fun game. I enjoy all of the voice acting. Like, it's all adorable. I love how they put Flame in there. Oh, look at it. They still put Flame in there. That's fun. But I really, really am happy with the voice names coming out. If that hadn't actually come out, I would have been really sad. It was actually like really sad that I couldn't have that my first time playing through the game, that I couldn't have the voice name option, because that was kind of one of the big sellers for me in the game. But overall, I enjoy this. This is just a fun game. It's a really awesome game. Cove is just an adorable little boy. And I like how he's written. I like how much he can change based on your own choices and everything. So it's really just a fun story to go through. Obviously, we're waiting for my name to appear in the credits. I'm gonna laugh if I somehow miss my name going in the credits. That would suck. But it's definitely been a fun experience. Obviously, I want to play Step 4, and I'm super excited for it. So let's see my name. But I'm also excited for the DLC for Step 3, because Step 3 was actually really good. fun. I could have totally already missed it. So if I missed it, you guys get to laugh at me in the comments if I missed my name in the credits. And I mean, I'm looking for both my names. I'm positive I told them to put the channel name, but I never know. I could have misread that. There we are! BlueFlame Entertainment! We're right there! Haha! There we are! Thank you! Oh, so they did put the right thing in there. They spelled it correctly. Yay! We're all happy. But, once again, I enjoy dating sims. I think it's really fun to just, like, step into a different universe and be a different character. Something like this, though, that you have so much customization over your own character, what your choices are, who you are, how you look, how people treat you, and how they treat you, how you look. It's really interesting, and it really like creates that moment where I can like just be me, and I really enjoy that. Obviously, I cannot wait for more. I don't particularly like the DLC for other partners. Yep, Step 4 Epilogue coming 2021. So obviously, this isn't going to be the last part for this, because once the DLC for Step 3 comes out, I will do a playthrough for Step 3. Oh, not that scene. Not that scene. We graduate from that end scene. So obviously, when the Step 3 DLC comes out, I will play that. I will obviously play the Step 3 DLC, because that's something I want to show you guys. I'm showing you the DLC for every other step, so not showing it for Step 3 seems weird. Obviously, we will do Step 4. I will as I said earlier, I'm not going to do the DLC for Baxter or Derek. A lot of that is because of how this game was pitched and how I've enjoyed how it came together. I don't particularly think that I'd be okay with any other romantic interests in this game. In other games, you get like attached to one main character, and that's your main romantic interest. And then you got some that you're like, okay, I'll see how your route goes. But in this, with how Cove is like the center of the whole relationship, and how I enjoy creating that relationship with him, I don't really like doing that with the other boys. But I also would like to see more of the friendship with Baxter and maybe Derek. The issue is I don't want the romantic aspect of it, so I don't know. I may or may not do it. I just hope that there is more Baxter in the DLC. I think in comparison to Derek, he feels like he got the much worst end of a stick. Like he says that we created a good summer, but we really only see it twice. Although one of those moments is actually like really fun, so. But anyway guys, thank you for joining me on Blue's journey with Cove through our life beginning and always. We will be back for the Step 3 DLC, so this is not technically the last episode, but it is the last episode because whenever I do that DLC, I'm going to like renumber the episodes, and this one will still be the last in the playlist because obviously it ends Step 3. And we'll also be back for Step 4. I feel like I'm repeating that. I am. I know I am. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me as I played through Blue and Cove's story. You already have seen like the lovely art I made for them. I will probably like make a huge collage of like the in-game cutscene images as well as my own art to like tell their whole story, and that'll be the ending one for Step 4. But I really enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed the characters. I love the art. Like, the art for this is fantastic. And it's one of the reasons why I probably will not support another game of this, because they were talking about the fact that they were going to change the art style. I'm part of the Kickstarter, guys, so I see all, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I was like, I don't think I could support it if you did that. I kind of like this art style really was, like, perfect. Like, a perfect mixture, and I really love it. And I love Cove too much to like do anybody else. But anyway, thank you all for joining me on this journey. Thanks so much for supporting me, and thanks for watching. Like, guys, you watched me romance a boy for hours on end, and I can't thank you enough for that. So, I will see you all on the flip side. Bye, everyone.